Hey everyone, Bree Royce from MassivelyOP.com, and today I have a video for all of you weirdos out here who kept begging for this. It is finally happening. It is my Star Wars Galaxies video on specifically high-end crafting and trading, because this is a thing that almost nobody really does on YouTube, and so that means that most people don't really know what it's like, and I talk about it all the time, but I wanted to actually show it. So a lot of people have asked me for this. I'm finally getting to it. Here's the deal with Star Wars Galaxies. It closed down in 2012, as many of you know. I consider it the best MMORPG of all time, at least the best sandbox MMO of all time. I loved it. It was just bless. I mean, it was that good. But since then, of course, actually during that period, even before it shut down, there were emulators galore. And ever since then, there have only been more. And a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, people actually came up with an NGE version of the emulator. Long story short, now that's available, and you can play either the original game in classic form on the SWG EMU, or on Star Wars Galaxies Legends, or anything in between. There's like 20 or 30 of these things out there. So don't think you have to pick this one if you're interested. And you can dig around on the website if you on MassivelyOP.com if you're interested in the history and the ethics of emulators, and specifically Star Wars emulators, and why Disney hasn't shut these down. All of those things, that's all on the website. I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm simply using Star Wars Galaxies Legends as my backdrop for explaining how crafting works and why it was so great in this game. And specifically, like I said, showing off high level gameplay, because most people who come to this game at any stage, really any version of this game, are going to be in at a very low level until they actually spend a lot of time and effort. It's taken me almost 2 years of playing to get to the point where I feel like I can show this off in a really good way, to the point where I feel like I'm capping enough of my stuff, at least in one profession, where I feel like comfortable showing it off. And this is a profession I had way back in the day too. We're mostly going to be talking about chefing, but I'm going to show droid engineering and tailoring and some other things too. So, one of the reasons I've been reluctant to do these kinds of videos, in spite of the fact that people keep asking for them or for streams or for whatever, is because I've been really concerned that this kind of gameplay, it sounds really interesting, but it could look kind of boring. I personally find it really fun, but really, as far as videos are concerned, I mean, a lot of this kind of gameplay is not done inside the game. And I'm not talking about like factories working while you're asleep. I'm talking about spreadsheets and tools, because you're going to be spending a lot of time. It's just like, spreadsheets in space for EVE Online, right? It's the same kind of concept, and we joke about that, but it's a big, big deal in this game. So I would like to dig into those tools. If you are not interested at all in the tools or in hearing how the resource system works, you can skip on ahead to gameplay towards the end. But I want to show this first, because to me, I don't even think I'd be playing this without Star Wars Aide. I'm dead serious. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this beautiful, beautiful tool right here is SWG Aide. That's AIDE if you're looking this up online. Everybody can download this. It's free to use, and it works for all of the servers, so far as I know anyway, at least the current version does. And this is basically a trader's godsend. If you are a crafter, you need to have this. The main purpose, and the original purpose at least, of this tool is to allow crafters and anybody to download and upload information about the stats and existence of specific resources in the game. So at any given time, there's like 400 or 500 or something resources that are live on a server, on a Star Wars Galaxies server. They spawn and despawn at given rates depending on the type of resource, and some of them are unique to planets and some of them span multiple planets. We're talking everything from things like multiple types of steel to, every planet has domesticated wheat. More importantly, they all spawn with different qualities and different statistics, and those statistics matter a whole lot in your final outcome for the vast majority of high quality items. So if you're trying to make a high quality piece of food that happens to use fungus, well, you're going to probably need very high PE, that's potential energy, and very high overall quality, that's OQ, and if it doesn't have those, it's not going to turn out as good as it could be. It won't hit the cap for that particular item. That doesn't make it worthless. You can still make that. You can still eat that. People do this all the time, and I certainly can't cap every single thing in my schematic bin. But the goal, of course, is to cap, is to make things as high as possible, to be able to cap certain experimentation lines, and I will get to that later in the video, so that you can use your experimentation points on other lines and make the whole the whole item much better in the end. So obviously that means a crafter or just a resource maven is going to be going out and trying to find the best resources at any given time, harvesting as much of them as possible, and hoarding them because you do not know when another item or another resource that good with those stats it could be years before you get another one that good. So if you're sitting on server best, that's what we call it, you want to get a lot of it. And so that stuff can, years from now, if nothing good has spawned, nothing better has spawned, those resources can be worth a ton of money. It can make you really, really wealthy, even if you don't craft. So getting back to the tool itself, Aide basically allows you to see all of the resources that other people have said are live on the server at any given time. You can actually also see the depleted ones. But the important thing is the ones that are live, and it allows you to go through a lengthy process to upload also your own resources that you have seen spawn on the server and that are live, and you can actually contribute. So this is kind of one of those community things where everybody's contributing so that everybody, nobody's doing it all by his or herself. This is a group project that we're all working on together here. And the tool just facilitates it, which is why it's awesome. So this is basically my first stop. Every single time I log into the game, I will click through here and I will look at what's new. What resources have come up since the last time I played? And are any of them good? And this particular tool allows you to monitor specific things. So you can keep an eye on things that are up. So for example, you can actually see up here that the polymetric radioactive that I was watching, in fact I was harvesting it, has despawned. So I already know just right now I'm going to have to go grab those harvesters, pick all that stuff up later. In fact, I'll probably show how that works, just so people who've never seen harvesters before can see how that works. But I can also look at new things and see whether there's anything I want. And that's what the guards are for. So you can set up specific guards so that the tool will make alarm noises and flash yellow at you. So if there's something that's specifically good that you're looking for, like for example, I'm always looking for super high quality hide, not just for armor smithing, but for chefing specifically. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And there's a couple up right now, but that I didn't actually go for because I was looking for leathery in this particular case. But long story short, you can set up your guards to do anything you want. So you don't really necessarily need to go through the whole thing, but I always do in case there's something I've forgotten or something that's really good that isn't necessarily something I would normally use for my own craft, but I want to sit on it. I want to get a bunch to maybe sell it later or maybe switch to that craft later. I just always flip through and take a peek, see if there's anything really interesting out there. So let me show you a couple of the other tabs here while we're working on it. I want to show you the inventory tab. This basically allows you to click on the things that you actually have in your own account, keep a record of them, complete with all of the statistics and any notes you choose to keep on what you use them for or what quality they are compared to other particular items. You can search for them. So if I wanted to look for all of the polymer I have, wow, I really need to get some more polymer. How about fiberblast? That's more interesting. There you can see all of the fiberblast that I have in stock right now, roughly how much I have, and what I use it for. Like some of this stuff, if it's got AS in it, that I've marked that specifically, don't use that for anything, but I'm hoarding it for when I shift over into doing some armor smithing stuff. I have other things I just use as whenever a recipe calls for chemical, but it requires a high OQ. I'll just sit on some fiberblast for that. I have some that I only keep around for beast mastery. So, there's a couple different uses for some of these. So I don't necessarily just want one fiberblast. There is no one fiberblast to rule them all unless you got some crazy lucky spawn where all 5 stats were 1,000. Good luck with that. That's probably not going to happen. There are some other really useful tabs in here. The harvesting tab, I will come back to this one. The submit resources one, this is where you can submit resources that you find. I'll come back to this one too. This shows you all of the different caps for different kinds of resources. Again, it's not always 1,000. So let's see, if I click down to herbivore meat, that's one I just know off the top of my head. Herbivore meat has a PE cap of 700, so it's not a big deal if you can't get it to 1,000. You literally can't get it to 1,000, and the game takes that into account for things that require specifically herbivore meat. It also means you can't use herbivore meat for things that take generic meat because that's expecting a cap of 1,000. That's just down to math. It's one of those things that this kind of tool can make really easy for you. And then here's the depleted resource bin I was talking about. So you can see things that have spawned in the past. You can also go to the website and do a quick search for any old antique resources. If for some reason you're using, say for example, the resource crate to summon 30k of any old resource, that's what that's for. And of course, there's a schematics bin over here, and I will be digging into this later too. But again, it allows you to see what resources are used by every single individual class, so you know what named resources you actually need. It'll show you the alert for today, so all of the things that the tool thinks are interesting for all of the professions. That's always something I like to keep an eye on in case there's something out there I haven't even thought that I might need, then I can just flip to this and check it out. The laboratory is one I will definitely be digging into during this video, but this allows you to home in on like specific recipes that you use and then cross-check them against the ingredients that you have in stock and figure out which ones are actually best for the type of experimentation you're going to do. This is a cool tool that every single person who is a crafter needs to have. This makes my life so much easier. I don't have to do this by hand anymore. And of course, this is the draft schematic tool. This basically lets you flip through every recipe in the entire game for all of the professions, and then you can kind of see here. I'll show you one. So like if you look up potato, you can also see what it's used in. So for me, I never make the cho, but I make bavoli all the time. And you can use that to click to bavoli and see what else you need to make it. And that's just one of those useful like reverse searching kind of tools. Overall, this is just one of those absolutely essential crafting tools. It makes everything so much easier and allows you to organize most of the stuff you're going to need together all in one tool. There is an exception, and that is for stock. I personally maintain a separate spreadsheet, I'm going to show you that next, where I can keep track of all of the things that I have in stock as well as what it takes me and what I want to charge for it, because based on basically what I feel like I've spent on it. So that's what I'm going to show you next. This is Bree's Crazy Person Spreadsheet. Now, first I want to say that I actually based this on a Taylor spreadsheet, and it was originally signed by Siona Secundus on Flurry, July 2007. Oh my goodness, my heart, right? That's just amazing. So people would make these cool spreadsheets, and they'd pass them around the internet way back then, and I had this one sitting in my bin, so when I came back to Legends a couple years ago, I took it and I basically hacked the crap out of it so that I could do what I wanted to with it. And so not only do I use it for tailoring, but I use it for pretty much all of my crafts. Chef, probably more than anything. I use this basically to plug in all of the components that I make, all of the overall costs of the different kinds of materials that I use, and then I use it to calculate how much I'm going to charge for individual items and crates of items when I'm making them. It's just basic Excel. There's actually no wizardry or anything here. Probably the most important thing in here is my stock. I write down exactly how much of any given thing I have in stock at any time. When you sell an item in the game, the game will send you a mail that says what's been sold, how much you sold it for, and who bought it, which is really handy because then you can just take a peek at that and go through and write down, okay, well, if I sold X, then I minus 1x, 1x on my spreadsheet, and it's really easy to know then when you need to make a bunch more. So you can see on my spreadsheet, when I'm getting low on a thing, I flag it in yellow. If you're colorblind, that might not be easy to see. So most of the things here, like a gold color, I flag them yellow for when I really know that that's the next thing I really need to be making. And then I flag them orange when I know I've already got some cooking in the ovens and at some point I need to go pull them out and put them on my vendor. So I will do this for everything. All of my heavy foods, all of my medium foods. I do this for my tailoring stuff. For tailoring, I don't actually make clothes. That's going to sound crazy to most people who play MMOs. I don't though. I actually focus solely on components, on making crates of components for like non-tailors, for people who are not into tailoring. So most of the people who buy from me tend to be architects and armorsmiths who are using my stuff for their own items, not for clothing. I do every once in a while have somebody come through who's clearly just switched over to tailor and just now realized that you need like a bunch of factories and a ton of components to actually make that go, but they really just wanted to switch to tailor to make themselves some clothes. So they just come through and buy me out, and that's fine too. So that's another thing I do. I keep track of all of the crates, and in this case, the full factory runs of crates that I sell to other non-tailors. And I kind of do the same thing for droids, for my droid engineer. That's kind of like my third profession. I'm going to probably talk more about like why it's not really feasible to do every single crafting profession in this game at the same time. I'll probably get to that toward the end. But this is my third profession, is droid engineering, and I do it very lightly. I make basically very light crafting and storage droid, so I keep track of what I've got in stock so that, every couple of weeks I come through and I just make a whole bunch more of what's run out. So same with some, other saleable items, batteries and customization kits, just little things, engineering type things like that I also sell. So that's kind of what I do with this spreadsheet. I use it for all of my crafts, but the tailor one, the chef one is probably the most important because this is my core business. This is where I make most of my money. Okay, so now that I've shown you the background and the tools and the spreadsheets and things that I actually use, I need to actually show you the way this works from an in-game standpoint. So when I log in for the first time on my main crafter, the first thing I will usually do is check my mail. As boring as that sounds, I'm going to check my mail first. And that's because, as I said, all of my sales have come into my mail. So I will go to my mail first, I will click on subject, I will sort instant sale versus vendor sale. Instant sales are actually done on the Bazaar and Mos Eisley. I'll show that in a little bit. And vendor sales came from my vendors in my shop. Ooh, let me show you my shop. So that was my workshop in here. Let me close all this down real quick. This is my workshop where I actually store all of my resources. Da, 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 da. It's kind of plain Jane. I don't care. Oh, but my hot tub. I've got a hot tub. Everybody needs to sit in the hot tub at one point. It's the best. Anyway, and then I've got a workshop in there, and then my tea house is over here. So I have my vendor that sells all of my food. It's an Ithorian. I love Ithorians. I have a little area where my singer can sing and I can get my buffs. And then I have all my other vendors over here. My tailor vendor, my kind of junk vendor, and then my engineering vendor is over here. And then this part is just kind of a role play thing. Again, I made it look like a tea house or a cantina, even though it's really just kind of selling food and snacks and things like that. So let me go back in my shop over here, my workshop. Pull up the mail so you can see exactly what I've done. So I will type mail save. And that will save all of the mail that I've got in my mailbox to the Star Wars, well, it saves it to the Star Wars folder, and then SWG Aide is able to read it, and that is how it will calculate later, and it will include it inside of all of my sales for as long as I look back. And then I will go through. I will personally delete all of the instant sales. I don't really care what sold. I'm going to go back to the Bazaar later, and I'm going to totally restock, so it's not really a big deal. I don't really care. What I actually need to record is vendor sales. So that is literally what I will go through and do. So I have sold flight computers. I won't worry about that. I'm just going to delete those because I probably am not going to restock those. I sold a merchant tent. I don't worry about recording that. Here's a flame out. So that's a partial flame out box. So I will delete that and go write that in my spreadsheet. A flame out box, down to 5 of those. Okay. Again, don't care about the tents. Why do people buy the tents? What do you do with all those tents? Gotta know. A couple months ago, somebody came through and bought like 20 boxes of Scrimpy, and I'm sitting here like, why? I don't get it. I don't know what the people in this game do with the stuff they buy from me. Somebody tell me. That's like more Scrimpy than anybody could use. It's taken me like 2 years to go through like a box of Best Ben Port, and I use a lot of it. I don't know what you guys are up to. All right, so Breath of Heaven. Sold a full box of that, a single of Flame Out, and a single of Akaragam. Okay, so I'm going to go through and do that real quick. What did I say? A Flame Out, single, a Breath of Heaven full, and you can see I've actually got more of those cooking, so I need to go set that up later, and 2 singles of Akaragam. Okay, that's done. We got a box of Scrimpy, 2, 3 boxes of those. So what's with the Scrimpy? You guys, you can see I have a ton of it. I have almost 40 Scrimpy saved up, stocked up because people keep coming through and buying my Scrimpy. I don't know what you guys are doing with it. And then I sold 2 trimmed. Was I selling trim? I was. I sold 2 boxes of trim. So I'll come back over here into my tailor one. Thank you for conveniently selling or buying some trim just for the purpose of this video so you could see me do this in the tailor spreadsheet too. So 2 boxes of those. Save the spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm caught up. All right, so now that I've taken care of that, I'm going to run out and I'm going to show you the way factories work. You can put down factories. They take up lots just like your houses in the game. In fact, I haven't even been outside of this house to show you how the way houses look in this game. Da, 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 da. Here's the overhead mini map. These are a bunch of houses. Not all of these are mine. The ones like up close, the ones that are like sandstone looking, the Tatooine kind of houses, those are mine. I actually have this little base set up on Dantooine. But there's other ones over there like that Imperial House, that Guild Hall, that tent. Those aren't mine. Those are just neighbors. When I moved in here in 2018, this place was empty, and that game had been going for over 2 years. There was nobody around me. I don't even know what happened. I've got like a village around me at this point. I love it. So back behind my shop in my house, I have about 10, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, oh, I have 12, 13, 14. Oh my gosh, I have a lot of factories, fam. That's what I'm trying to say. So I have tons of factories. I have 2 structure factories, 2 equipment factories, and then, yeah, 5 each of the food ones and the tailoring ones. And they're busy a lot. So basically, yeah, you plop one of these down. If you're a crafter, then you can actually do stuff with it. In my particular case, I let them run overnight, so I have things that were made. So what you do is you'll craft the item. Oh, I should have done crafting first. I'll get to that later. So basically, you'll take your schematic. Once you craft a schematic, you'll pop it into the factory, put all the resources in, hit go, and then come back after a certain amount of time, and all of your stuff will have been made for you AFK while you were logged out, while you were sleeping, whatever. In this particular case, I made a ton of Pylean cake. So I'm going to pick it up in my inventory, and I'm going to run around to all my factories and basically do that. I have more cake. Oh, nope, I have alcohol here. So in this particular case, I'm going to open up my data pad. I'm going to open up my robot. I'll go through my robot when I get to my droid engineer. Oh, I love robots in this game. It's so fun. So I use a bunch of storage droids to store all of my components for crafting. So I will just pop all of these alcohol boxes right into the droid and store that for later. I will use those. Like, I actually have 2 full robots full of alcohol. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? And then over here, I was actually making full runs of trim over here in my clothing factories. So I'm going to run around and do that and skip past this, but that's basically the gist of it. You will just basically unload your factories, and then you can load them back up if you want to and have them make something else. They can only make one thing at a time. So I'm not going to grab all the trim. I do want to grab all the food though, because I'd like to show you what it looks like to mess around with vendors, because that's something I think high level crafters are going to be doing all the time. Oh yeah, here's all my Breath of Heaven. Oh, it's so beautiful. So yeah, that's the other cool thing about this game. A lot of games don't have, like, when you can craft an individual thing. I can craft a cask of Breath of Heaven that will have a bunch of charges on it, just one little piece of food, but you can also make it in crates like this in a factory. And so there are some things you have to use a factory for, and somewhere it's just plain convenient. And this is the one that's just plain convenient. There's nothing for it. What was the other one? That was pudding. So that was a big old run of pudding that we've got to put up here. Because a lot of people will just come and they don't want to just buy one stack of food. That takes up a whole inventory space. They want to buy a whole box of food where they can just double click it and the food will pop out, and then they can eat that one, and now they've got 2 inventory spaces only instead of like 25. So what I would do is I would take all the new stuff that I just got, that I just pull out of my factories that I cooked overnight. I will open up the vendor. I'm going to punch in Pylean because I know I want to put some Pylean up here. That's going to jog my memory for how much it costs, all of the information I need to know about it, and then I'm going to upload it. I'm going to click on the cake. I'm going to put in 150K, and I'm going to count as I put them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lag. Nope. Darn it. Darn it. I screwed that up. All right, so it was 6. And then I accidentally sold a Breath of Heaven because I was trying to be cute. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to look up Pylean cake. I'm going to put in, what was it, 6? I'm going to put in 30 because now I have 24 plus 6 is 30. So now I know I have a lot of cake in there. That's a lot of cake. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll do the same thing with Breath of Heaven. So I know I already put 1, and I need to actually get the one that I just put up there because it was too cheap. So that's coming back down. Oops. All right. So I sell that for 225K, which is 9K a stack. So 225. So 1, 2, 13. All right. So I'm going to write that down. 13. Actually, I'm going to change the color. So it's 14 plus 13, so we're at 27, Breath of Heaven. And then you might have noticed I've got a case of 7 left over. I don't like to put in unusual numbers like that because it requires more math than most people are willing to do on the fly. But crates of like 5 and 10, people can figure that out really easily, so that's what I do. So I will pop out 2 of those. I will put those up individually. So those are going to be 9K a piece. And where we go, these are going to be 45K for a partial crate, and then I will write those down. So I will up this to 8 and up this to 2. So now Breath of Heaven completely done. I don't need to worry about that probably for a couple of weeks before those all sell out. And then we'll do the same thing with the pudding. So pudding, this is all 300K except for some of the lower uncapped stuff. So here's an example of where I haven't capped things. Pudding is really hard to make. It requires 3 creature resources, which are different from the kind of resources where you put down a harvester and just collect it all. That's kind of a pain in the butt, but it means you had to manually harvest or at least use a robot to be there physically while you are actually harvesting, and getting 3 really good ones, especially milk, is really a pain in the butt. So these are very expensive compared to some other foods, and people will buy non-capped ones. They won't even think twice about it. So, but these are capped. So these are going to be the full price of 300K. So 1, 2, 3, 9. And same deal, gonna do that, gonna add that. So that brings us up to 20. 11 plus 9 is 20. So I have 20 of those, and I'm going to do the same thing as with the Breath of Heaven. I'm going to chop off 3 here. 3 individuals, and then I'm going to split this in a 5 and a 10. So these are going to be at 12K a piece. 1, 2, 3 of those guys. Let's bring that to 12, and then this is going to be 120K, and this is going to be half of that, so that's 60K. Okay, so that is like all of the actual uploading I need to do. I'll probably go back and do the trim later when I'm not recording, but that's like the gist of it. That you collect stuff from your factories, you put it up on your vendors, and then it's for sale. Then anybody can find it from the Bazaar, which is what I'm going to show you next. So for various reasons, most people do most of their out of house non-vendor selling in the Mos Eisley Bazaar. It's kind of bizarre. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Mos Eisley is supposed to be in the middle of nowhere. It should not be the hotspot of trade. Even in this time period, it makes no sense whatsoever. But this is like the place where the tutorial dumps you. So everybody pretty much starts in Mos Eisley, which makes it just a really convenient place for newbies who don't have a whole lot of footing in the game, who don't have a player city yet, who don't have a network to buy stuff. So it just kind of became the default. Sometimes you'll see stuff in Theed on Naboo or in Coronet on Corellia, but I don't even bother. I just use Mos Eisley. So everybody in the game can access the Bazaar. I'm running to it now to show it to you. Everybody can access it. It is local in that if you upload something to the Mos Eisley Bazaar, to any of the Mos Eisley terminals, you can only pick it up from there if it doesn't sell. And if you buy it, if somebody buys it, they can only get it from these particular terminals. So they can't just go to Corellia and pick it up if it was sold and purchased here. So that's kind of neat. But you can see it from anywhere in the galaxy, which is really super important. And more importantly, you can also check all of the things and all of the vendors across the entire server. You can literally look up anything you want. So if I wanted to click over here to vendor location and type in, what did we just put up? We put in fizz pudding. I'm going to put in fizz pudding and show you the stuff that I literally just uploaded onto my own vendor. Now it'll probably be toward the end. Yep, so here we go. These are mine. These are some of the ones I just put up. There they are, right there where anybody can come get them. So that's, kind of a nice thing. It helps keep the prices from getting too out of whack, but it also allows people to find your vendor even if you're on the middle of nowhere. Does anybody out there remember Ultima Online? Ultima Online back in the day did not have this. It has it now, which really is really cool. It's only had it for the last couple of years though. Before that, you pretty much needed to have a house on exactly the right around a city, right around like Luna or one of the important other cities. Otherwise, people would never find your vendor unless you were like dropping runes constantly. So it meant that like people couldn't just live in the middle of nowhere and get foot traffic. It just didn't happen. That's not the way this game works. Yes, people like convenience. They really love just buying everything at the Mos Eisley Bazaar, but we're limited in what we can sell, how much we can sell, and what we can sell it for. So vendors are still like the core of the game. I love the way that works. That's just it just drives people to, the whole, it drives them to travel, it drives them to go shopping. It's just really fun. But the reason I am actually here is to restock the stuff I have on the Bazaar. I'm going to go through my bag full of stuff that I've specifically set aside to put on the Bazaar, and I'm literally just going to look at what's still up there, and I'm going to put up some other things. So in this case, what have we got? I have a couple fizz pudding. Do I have any flame outs? My flame outs didn't sell. My sauce didn't sell. I don't have any. I've only got one Terrata, so we'll sell a Terrata. That's plenty of that. Plenty of Thack. Do I have any Tillatil? I do. Wow, this really didn't sell very well. All my Trimpians sold, so we're going to sell a bunch of Trimpian. Yeah, let's sell that. And how about a Vegaparsine? Okay, so those are the things I'm actually going to sell. Terrata goes for 12k. And you can set these up as auctions just like in something like WoW or whatever. But most people don't. They don't bother. They'll just put a flat fee because the auctions can take forever and nobody bids on them. It's really not worth your time. So Trimpian we do for 7k on the Bazaar. I make more money on my vendors, but people are willing to pay more for certain items on the Bazaar simply because of the convenience of it. But you can't like just put everything here because you're limited to 25 items. And yeah, there's some drawbacks to it, but I find personally that working both angles works best because then people see you, they know your name. Like if you look at an item that you've made, you can see who made it, and eventually they find your shop, which is really cool. So that is what I have done. I have now restocked my Bazaar. I don't actually need to shop for anything today. I don't need any specific things, so I'm not going to waste any more time on that. I am done with the Bazaar for the evening. Now, usually I will actually come through on other characters. So, for example, my Smuggler, whom is a character I just don't really use very much unless I'm actually after some specific creature resources. I usually camp her out at the Bazaar, and I just log her in every day, and I have like a big inventory of stuff for her and I just put up more. I sell all kinds of things, factories, stuff that I just don't want anymore, or yeah, droids sometimes I sell, that kind of stuff. Bags sell really well. It's kind of weird stuff. It's the kind of stuff newbies would want at the Bazaar. I don't like overcharge or anything. Just normal prices. So it does pretty well. Like it's a brisk, easy business. You make them in factories and then you just bring them to the Bazaar and actually sell them, as they go. And that's just kind of just an easy side income that only takes like a minute to actually change over every day. So I kind of do that sometimes, but this character, my chef, is really my core crafter, my core business. So at this point in the video, you might be noticing I haven't crafted anything yet, and this was supposed to be a video about crafting, and that was my whole point, is that there's actually very, very little crafting that goes on in the world and life of a Star Wars Galaxies crafter. But I want to walk you through how I would go about making a thing and how that all works from spreadsheet to tool to the actual process in game, and it all starts with the buff. You have to get your entertainer buff, especially if you're making something that really just lives or dies by amazing success rolls. So I've logged in my entertainer, and she is going to buff me. I am actually listening to her now. This, by the way, really cool how this works in this game. You can go to the cantina in Mos Eisley, and there will be other people who are giving buffs. You don't have to have your own, and it's just really neat the way this works. They actually play music. I'm not going to play the music because I don't want this video to get delisted for using music from Star Wars, because that's what it is. But anyway, while she does that, I'm gonna keep going. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go to my spreadsheet. I'm going to figure out what I need to make. It is Mandalorian wine because I'm getting low on that, and I sell quite a lot of it. So I know I'm going to be making it, and I have a little note out here that says 333, which tells me a full run is going to encompass 333 items. So that's because of the way the alcohol works. So I'm going to start getting that ready while my buff is actually working its way up to max. So I'm going to open my droid that I keep all my alcohol in. Remember before when I was talking about all that alcohol? This is where I was going to use it. We're going to close him. We're going to leave that inventory open. We're also going to get some intelligent nanonutrients. When it comes to making food, you almost always are going to use bioengineered tissues. Back in the original game, you had an actual bioengineer make them, and now of course bioengineers don't exactly work the same way. Now there's Beastmasters and they have some of that stuff, but not this part. This part is now in the domestics tree, so I make them myself. I'm going to go through and find, let's see, the smallest smallest group I have is actually this one. 1, 2. So I'm going to just pull all of those out for now. Although I'm only going to need 333, so I could probably just calculate that now. And make it easier on me. Okay. So I know I'm going to need that. Put that guy away. And I'm also going to need casks. Do I have any out? I have some here. So we get 33 plus another... Whoops, did I do the math on that wrong? I totally did. Bree. Alright. I'm going to pull out that 100. Okay. Now I know I'm going to need all of the alcohol in this droid, but I'm going to only take out these two. Because otherwise it will fill my whole bag and that will be really annoying. So I know I need the nutrition enhancements, the casks, the alcohol. Buff myself here. I'm going to give myself, this is what you'll ask for, by the way, if you go to somebody else to buff you. You ask for assembly and amazing. They'll know exactly what you're talking about because every crafter wants this. Then I accept it. Okay, so actually what we're going to do next is go into Star Wars Aide. So here I was actually teasing this earlier. I'm going to go into the laboratory. I'm going to click on my character's name and I have preset all of these schematics as being things that I make and I need to know what the quality of these particular things are. So I'm going to click on Mandalorian wine because that's the thing I know I want to make. I'm going to uncheck quantity and flavor. And by the way, mad props to the guy who works on the Unity version of this tool because I asked him to put this in, not expecting him to put this in, and he had it in like 2 days later. And this is amazing. So you can turn off quantity and flavor. When you go to experiment, I'll show you this in a sec, you basically get to choose which specific types, which qualities you want to enhance on the item that you're making. When it comes to food, you can either enhance how many charges in a stack, you can enhance how long each charge lasts, or you can enhance the actual potency of the buff. When it comes to food, almost always you're going to enhance the potency of the buff. People are not really interested in the length of time because they can just use more, and they're not really interested in the quantity because they can just use more. That's not really a problem. They can always buy more, they can always get more, but they can't always get better. So better is usually what we're going for. So what this does is pulls from all of the ingredients that I personally have in my inventory. So remember when I showed you the, let's see, resources inventory before? This is all the stuff I have and all of everything you need to know about it. Over in schematics, it's pulling all of that information and showing it to me. So I know what I actually have to work with here. So I need wild rice at a certain ratio of OQ and PE, and I need fruits at a certain ratio of OQ and PE, and this is going to tell me the best ones. Best yet, if I weren't sure about which ones to use. In this case, there are only 2 that are actually above 960, and 960 is what you need to, with the specific specialization in the game you will have as a crafter, actually cap the nutrition line of the food. That's all I'm really concerned about here. But if I weren't sure about that, like, so say for example, I wanted to try to combine this high quality Andorian wild rice with a slightly less high quality Corellian fruit that is not at the cap, and I wanted to see if it worked, I would click dust bench. Why is it lagged? Okay, here we go. So then I would added the rice, and then I would add the fruit. There we go. So now it's going to run the numbers for me, and I don't have to do this myself. And it will show me my result, and here we go. It's 958. What's that? What is that telling me? I mean, that means nothing to you. It means everything to me. It means I should not use this combination because it is not going to hit the cap, and I will be disappointed with the result. So I will unclick this fruit, and instead I will click this better fruit. And now it's over 960. It's 964.4, in fact. So this is the combination that I should use if I would like to cap, and I do. So it's Ori Pezri and so we have. As I mentioned before, all of the names of the resources in the game are randomly generated and unique, so they're usually nonsense, and those are definitely nonsense. All right, so I'm going to go through here and pull those out. I think it's like wild oats. Yeah. No, that wasn't it. What was it? Wild rice. Here we go. Ori Pezri, and the fruits were, so we have, and I don't know, I've only got 8.86 million of those. I might run out soon. I will be old and gray before I run out of that food. Okay, so now I'm going to actually open up my crafting tool specific for food. You can see I've got my buff, it's still working. My food is set up. I have all of my experimentation gear on, so I've got as many points as I can possibly get. And I'm going to go to food and I'm going to type in Mandalorian wine. Double click that and here's where the magic begins. So we're going to add the fruits and the rice, 2 different kinds of alcohol to fulfill that one. We're going to add a cask. Oh, I forgot to get out all the casks. I need to get more casks. Not that cask. Let's check that one. A cask and the heavy nutrition. And then we're going to eat a bite of Pylean cake, which is a one-off charge to increasing your assembly roll. I tested this once a long time ago. We're talking like 10 years ago, probably longer than that, probably like 12 or 13 years ago. I ran like multiple evenings of experimentation on trying to find out whether assembly changed the final outcome of food. My results basically said no, but everybody still does it anyway. No one really understands the math in this darn game. All right, I'm going to click on experiment because that's what we're going to do. So here's where you can see you can experiment on flavor, nutritional value, and quantity. You basically get this number of points down here. In my case, it's 13 because of all of the items that I'm actually wearing that boost my experimentation. And I will also be using Bespin Port, which is a food that I happen to make that increases my chance of getting a really good roll. So when it comes to Mando wine, let's see. My goal is to get the strength to 211, but I also want to try to get at least 21 uses. So I know I'm going to have to put a little bit into quantity, and then I try to put everything else into flavor. So I'm hoping for really big rolls on flavor. So I ate my port. I'm going to hit a couple of these. If I get amazing successes, there's one. That's a really good sign. If you can get a bunch of those in a row, you're on a roll. Oh, just a great one. I'm going to do another one. That was a great one. So here I usually put my last one here and I'll put 1 in quantity and see what happens. Rolling the dice. Okay, so that boosted me to 211 strength, 21 uses. Now I'm going to put my last 2 points in flavor because if you could try to put them in quantity, but you're really unlikely to get it. There's a threshold, and I want to say the next one is not until 40, and you will not get that with 2 points. So instead, I will eat my port and roll the dice on hoping I get a big boost of flavor, and I didn't. So at this point, I have 2 options. I can either say, that's fine, I'll use this. This will be my final thing. I will use this schematic. Or I will say, you know what? I could probably get I'm willing to try this a couple more times. I'm going to keep trying to get a really good schematic, try to get a slightly higher duration count because that will sell better in the end. In this case, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click create a prototype item. I'm not going to make a schematic. I'm going to make the real item and I'm going to sell that individually. But first, I'm going to type this in plus 200 strength, only I'm going to spell strength correctly. 211 strength plus 40 Constitution. Boy, I can't spell. Constitution. It's almost like a writer. I'm a writer or something. And that's where I stop. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to copy it, though, in case I need to do this more than once, because that often happens. I have, especially when it comes to certain things that require, have a really long factory run time, or just I'm popping out a ton of them, it's totally worth it to just make one really good schematic, even if it takes 10 or 15 tries. Others I won't bother with. It really just depends what it is. In this particular case, since I'm probably going to have this stuff for a while, I'm going to go, oh, I forgot to eat my assembly. That's okay. So we're going to do that whole process over again. Eating the port, experimenting. All right, we made it to 211 and uses remaining 21, so we really need an amazing roll here. Did we get it? We got it, yes. So this is roughly about as good as I can do with the 13 experimentation points. If they do things like add diners or, if I were in a specialty research city, I might be able to get slightly better rolls, but most likely not. This is about as good as I can do with the resources I have. So I'm going to click Done Experimenting. I'm going to click Create Manufacturing Schematic. I'm going to type in exactly what I typed in before, 211 Strength plus 40 Constitution, and I'm going to click Create Object. Now this is not going to send anything into my inventory. Like here's the thing I made before. There's the wine. I'm going to sell that. I'm probably going to put that on the Bazaar the next time I'm at the Bazaar. This thing actually went straight into my data pad. Here it is. It's actually a factory schematic. So what we're going to do, we're going to take that schematic right back out to my factories. And now normally I would do a bunch of these and take them all out together, but I'm just trying to show the way one of them works. Just to see, I will run out to my factory and we're going to upload all of that stuff into the factory. So I've got the schematic. Let's put it right here. Access schematic slot. I'm going to put in the Mandalorian wine. Then I'm going to click on list ingredients needed for station. Then I'm going to click on access ingredient hopper, and then we're going to put it all in. So I already know I need all of this alcohol, if you know what I mean. And I don't think you do, because this is a video in the past. I'm going to put all this alcohol in here, and also the remaining alcohol from here. Okay, plus the heavy nutrients, 300, what did I say, 333, so now it's 331 because we used 2 of them. And then I need to get the casks out because I forgot those before. So we'll get cask 2, 331. All right, and then I need the actual ingredients. So here's where I actually go to a real calculator, or in this case my phone, and I will type in 331 times 15. And so I know I need to put 4,965 of each of these, of the rice and the fruits, 4,965, into the factory. And let me click go. And that's it. It seems like a lot, but when you have to do that 5 times for all of your factories, yeah, it's a lot. So you can also click on the factory and see each one of these is going to take 160 seconds. So you know what's 331 times 160 divided by 60 divided by 60. It's going to take about 14.7 hours to finish this entire run. And in the end, I will have 331. Only it'll be divided into boxes of 25, which I can easily sell in the Bazaar or my vendors, just like I was showing the ones that I actually crafted yesterday. So I will let that run. That will be running all night, and tomorrow these will be ready for me to package up and sell. And then I will go back over here to my spreadsheet, click on the Mando wine, and then I will flag it orange so that I don't accidentally go back into my house and make more, because I've done that. So basically, I would do that for as many things as I had, I actually needed to make. I would try to fill my factories. In this particular case, when I'm done recording, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make 3 more runs of alcohol because I clearly am running low on it. I'm down to half. So that's going to be an easy thing to make. That's one of those things in the game here. I'll just show you what it looks like. Easy thing in the game because it doesn't actually require experimentation. It can use complete junk. In fact, I call them grind resources. Some people call them junk resources. So I'm going to pop out 30,030 of this junk, absolutely terrible domesticated wheat. Close that back down. Open this back up. Type in alcohol. All right, and then I'm going to make these really fast. Oh, actually, I should put away my good stuff before I accidentally use it. Done that before, too. Nope. There we go. All right. So we're going to make these really fast. See, there's not even an option to experiment. That's because you flat out can't. They're just junk, and they're all basically the same. So I will put in a couple of the digits of the serial number just to help me keep it straight when I'm actually looking for it in the droid, and I'll make 3 of these factory schematics, just like the other ones without the experimentation. And I will do exactly the same thing. Go out to my factories and plug it all in and let it cook overnight because I need them. One of the tricky things to balancing all of this is making sure that you have all of the subcomponents for everything. And I think that this is one of those things where this particular server makes this way easier. I've even talked about this in a daily grind a month or so ago when I talked about how they've increased the size of crates to 100, which means you can keep not just one or even part of one factory run of a subcomponent in your droid. You can keep multiple runs, which means I can stock up. I can save lots and lots of factory runs of all the components I use, and you can see in my data pad it's a lot. It makes it really easy to make things on the fly, but then when I have some downtime, I also just try to restock those things. That's just a hard thing, a tricky thing to balance, especially if you're trying not to log in around the clock. So earlier in the video, I showed the part of Star Wars Galaxies Aide where you could go into the submit resource bin and literally submit resources. I want to show what that looks like inside the game because it's very time consuming, but it's one of those cool ways you can really give back to the server and other crafters. It looks like someone has done it on our server within 6 hours because everything that's showing here is only 6 hours old. And it looks like they did it for gas, organics, gems. It looks like they did it for everything but creature resources. So I'm going to show you what it looks like for regular resources, and then I'm going to go through the real process for creature resources and show you both the start and the end of that and how to actually get things uploaded if you are curious. So if I were going to be doing this, I would normally pop out, let's see, I would pop out 12 water survey devices, mineral, 12 gas, 12 flora, 12 chemical, and what does it come out to? 60. I think it's 60 of these guys. Pretty sure. All right. So here's what I would do. I would pop out 12 and put the others away. I'm not going to actually do the whole thing. I'm just going to do chemical this time. So I'm going to open up all the chemical survey tools. These are really cheap and easy to make. The droids, not so much. I make them myself though, so these are free for me, so I don't worry too much about it. I'll pop out 20 or 12 of the exact survey tool that I'm looking for, and then I will drop in the survey droids, open them up. What this will do is show you all of the planets in the galaxy, including the two, that you can't even really put down harvesters on. But I like to know what's up anyway. It'll allow you to click on them in order and send a droid out to survey all of the things, the chemical things on that planet. That's really all you're doing here. And you do this for every single planet on every single survey device, all the way down the chain. Corellia, Rory, Talus, literally all of them. Now I'm getting ahead of myself. Endor, did I miss one? You shouldn't talk while you do this because you will screw it up. And then Loke and Yavin. Yeah, I definitely screwed it up. No, I didn't. I'm actually back on track. Yep, and then Kachiro, which is actually Kashyyyk, not Kachiro. I don't know why Kachiro, whatever. They got confused. And then Mustafar. Okay, so I send out 12. All 12 are done. I'm not going to do that for water and mineral gas and survey and flora because, again, those have already been done. They probably haven't really rolled since. That will basically send out all the droids. There's this imaginary sense of a fleet of survey droids going out into the universe. And within, let's see, what does that boil down to? I forget. I think that's 27 minutes. I haven't written down yet. 27 minutes. I will start getting emails. I will get a lot of emails. All these emails will start pouring in with all of the information from those particular droids about what the chemicals in the game look like. It'll tell me what's up and on what planet. It will not tell me the statistics. I have to go manually look those up, but that's way more information than I had. And now I don't have to go to every planet. So when those get back, I will show you what that looks like and what that process looks like. While those are out, though, I want to show you what it looks like if you're just doing creature resources, because honestly, I think I might be the only person on the server who really even cares about this anymore, because it's a really big deal for chefing. So I pay a lot of attention to creature resources. I'm always looking for hide and meat and milk and even bone. So that stuff is important to me. So I would go to the submit resources panel. I would type in creature resources. I would leave it at age 6 because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for things that are likely to have rolled. Nothing under 6 days is likely to have rolled unless it was added really late in its life cycle. Possible, but since I'm on top of this, not super likely. I will click right to rem text. I will click erase so that it puts the new list. And what it's doing right now is getting me a huge list of every single creature resource that is older than 6 days, that was reported more than 6 days ago on the server right now that hasn't been reported, gone. It is doing that, it is putting that in a notepad file for me. It is so nice. And I will go into the game and type note rem. It's note rem. This is all the stuff it's now pulled for me. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. And this is one of the reasons people absolutely hate doing creature resources. So I already know I'm not going to bother with eggs. I'm going to just delete them right out of here so I don't have to look at them. Eggs are gone. Fish meat, don't care about you. And the reason for that, by the way, is because those are just a pain in the butt to get. No one really cares. They're not used in anything specific that I would make. Okay, so I've cleaned up the file just a little bit. I'm going to go in here. Now I have a bunch of these crates of free resources. You need one of them. So if you got one as a newbie and you haven't sold it yet, you might want to hang on to it. Or you can buy it back from somebody else who's doing the same thing you did. I also sold mine as a newbie and then bought it back later when I had some money. So you're going to open this up. You are not going to actually take any real resources. Please do not actually take resources. All you're going to do is use this little resource kit to look up the stats of the resources. So I'm going to click on organic because we're looking up all of the domesticated milks right now. So I'm going to click on creature food, milk, domesticated milk, Corellian domesticated milk, scroll all the way down, and then I'm going to check. So this is the last one that was uploaded. It was called Oenani. Sure it was. Here it is, but there's one below it that almost always, like 99.9% of the time, means that this no longer exists. This is the new one. So I will click on it. I'm not going to click OK because I don't actually want to get it. Ooh, this is good. That's actually pretty decent milk for milk. So I'm going to delete the old one because it's depleted at this point. I'm going to type in the new one. It's Acibio. I told you these were silly. Then I'm going to type in the stats just straight up in order because that's how the SWG Aide reads it. So 512, 590, 905, 726. The money numbers here for me are the potential energy and the overall quality. These are not perfect. This will not cap, but this is pretty good. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. And then I will do that for everything in this file. So here, nodact as rolled, I will delete that and replace it with iestas. Gibberish. 436, 137, 531, 396, back, Dathomirian, Echerirla has not rolled. So you can see this is still the one at the bottom. So it is not rolled. I will not do anything. I will delete it. And that's no surprise because it's only 6 days old. Delete it from the list. So a lot of these, especially the ones that haven't been around for very long, are just going to get deleted and I don't have to do anything with them. That's nice. I mean, that's confirmation. This one, Gyagi, also not a word. That hasn't rolled either. Deleting that. Then on to Lokian. And I will do that for literally every single thing in this list that I feel like doing it for. And I'm going to do that and then I'm going to come back and show you what I do with it next. It occurs to me while I'm doing this that I didn't actually explain what a Creative Free Resources is. This is basically a veteran reward, a really old one back from the SOE days that Legends has incorporated into this game too. The point of it is to allow you to look up all of the antique resources on the server and then collect one of them in a stack of about 30,000. So it also, in the course of doing this, gives you a window into all of the antique resources on the server, as well as the current one. So you can basically use it to see what's actually up and what the stats are. That's the important thing. So it's not intended to be used with Aide in this way, except that literally this was done back in the original game. So it's just one of those things people have just come to accept that's the way it is. And so this tool, this crate is actually useful not just for bringing down the price of certain resources that can go sky high otherwise, and of course giving newbies a nice little leg up in the game because these things can run over 6 million credits a piece. Just show up in the game and suddenly you've got 6 million credits. That's really nice, but it's also really useful as a tool for crafters in this way. Okay, so at this point I have finished all of the ones I'm going to do. I have just stuck to milk and meat. I will get to the hide and the bone tomorrow because it's just too time consuming. That took me over 35 minutes. So you can understand why people don't want to do this on a constant regular basis. I remember back in the day I used to do this like every day or every other day. That was nonsense. Who has that kind of time? Not me. Anyway, so I'm going to close it and then I'm going to go back out to the submit resources bin and I'm going to click load from rem text. As soon as you close it, it saves. That's why this is going to work. I'm going to click use Star Wars SWG Legends because that's the server I'm on. You can have multiple ones of those, but that's the one I want. It's going to show everything I just put in this window, and then I'm going to click submit, and it's going to upload them one at a time to the database, the online database, so that everybody else can download them. It is going to cross-check, so any terms, here we go, any terms that it decides may not be legit, it thinks you may have mistyped them, it'll go ahead and tell you those. But in these cases, those are not even close. I did not mistype those. So we're going to click Submit New for both of them. And then you can go over to Current Resources and see them right here. So everybody else now is going to have access to these two. And if they're, blurred out like this, if they have that light blue, it just means that you can't actually manually harvest them. But sometimes that's wrong, so I go ahead and do them anyway. Okay, so in the meantime, I got back all of those survey droids. I'm going to click mail save again. It's going to save all of my mails, both my vendor mails and the interplanetary survey droid mails. As soon as that's done, we're going to go back over. It's done to, let's see, we go to main, we go to mail. So we go to the ISD droid panel. And you can see it's got all this. Yay! So very little actually changed. Remember, all we did was chemicals, and I didn't expect really anything to pop up because someone had done this only a couple hours ago. But in this case, something did roll and something new did pop up. So the first thing we're going to do is click Submit 1 and 2, because that means there's nothing that someone else had reported but hadn't reported on a certain planet yet. That does happen sometimes. In this case, there is something that no longer exists in terms of its liquid petrofuel. So we're going to submit 1 and 2. So now that's going to remove that. So if anybody was watching that petrofuel, now they know it's done, it's gone. They should go get their harvesters. Then down here, we've got some new resources on certain planets. So we're going to click right to File. Then we're going to go back in the game and we're going to click Note Res instead of Rem. And it's going to list it. And it'll be a big list because you'll have sent out 60 of these things, not just 12. In this case, it's just going to be the one thing, but it's perfect for the example. So we will go to inorganic, chemical, liquid petrochem fuel. It's a lubricating oil. So we will go to inert petrochem, lubricating oil. And we'll scroll all the way down to the bottom, and now we know exactly the name because this is not a creature resource. This is an inorganic resource in the Star Wars parlance. So we will look this up exactly. It's Quatamesni. Sure it is. We will click on it, and now really all we need to do here is write in the resource statistics. And that's it. We will close it. We will go right back over here, and we will click Submit. And it's not going to have much to do. It's going to upload it for every single planet, so that's the only thing it really has to do. Then we're going to go over and look, and actually this is a little bit older than the stuff I just uploaded, so there it is. It's down here. And that's up now too. So for my last trick, I thought it would be fun to talk about harvesters and the way they work in the game. There are a couple ways you can get resources out of the game. One of them, as I've talked about already, is creature harvesting. So you go out, you kill a bunch of mobs and you harvest their hide or their meat or their bones, or in some cases you can actually milk certain domesticated animals. And there are a couple other ways, but that's like the core. Everything else though in the game is harvested either manually or in most cases through a harvester of different sizes, different types, everything from chemicals to minerals to actual power that you use to power them up. I wanted to show you where this character is because this character has already put some down, and as you can see, I am standing in a field of probably, I don't know, how many do you think are down there? 100 maybe? It's literally just a gigantic field of heavy mineral harvesters where somebody is just getting millions upon millions of resources out of the ground. These all take lots, just like houses, just like factories. So you have to juggle, and you can only legally have one account on this server. So unless they're cheating, this is a big collective, a big group of people who are all getting whatever the good thing is here. I didn't even talk about this yet, but when you go to survey something, you click on a survey tool, you can see all of the things on that particular tool. So like the thing that I was surveying was radioactive. So let's look for some steel. Let's see what's up. What are these people harvesting? What are these crazy people doing? It's not neutronium steel, but this gives you a pretty good clue for what exactly they're getting in this particular spot, what they're doing. You can see it'll pop up, it'll show you how, like, the density of that particular resource in this particular area. So what you're looking for is something obviously a lot higher than 34, which is why I know they're not harvesting this. They would be looking for a steel, they'd be looking for something closer to 80. Regular ore, you're gonna probably max out around 50. It's different for every resource, just like everything else. But some things can go all the way up to 100. Some of the chemicals, some of the jump to light speed resources can go all the way up that way. So basically what you would do if you wanted some resources and you had some open lots, you would go out, you would buy the harvesters, you would survey on the planet, you would use Aide to figure out where exactly which planet has the thing you're looking for. You would go to that planet, you would just get on your speeder bike, zoom around until you found a spot that had enough density and room to actually place your harvesters, which is not always. That's sometimes the hard part. And then you basically put your harvesters down, you pop in some money, you pop in some power, and then you come back in a couple days. So what I was doing, and I'll go back to Aide here for a second, I was actually harvesting radioactive energy Radioactive is a little bit different because it uses fusion power generators, and it doesn't actually take power because it generates power, and wouldn't make any, you know what I'm saying. It just takes money, but most of the harvesters take both. In this particular case, I went to what I was trying to harvest in the resource list. I right clicked on it and I clicked on add to harvester panel, and that popped it over here using my list of harvesters that I manually put in myself. What type they were, what kind of base extraction rate they had, their hopper size, the modifier for the server, it's double on this server, and then all of my characters and all of their individual buffs so that I can very easily and very quickly just plop in here exactly what I'm harvesting, and it will calculate for me how long it will take under all of those circumstances, under the density of the spot and all of my buffs and whatever else is going on, and tell me when it's going to fill up and when I need to come back and check it. Usually it's every couple of days. So that gives you kind of an estimate for how long it's going to take to get a nice big stack of resources that are going to be saved up for you in a couple days. You're going to come get them. So when this thing starts to flash yellow, right now it's red because it's actually rolled on me, but it'll flash yellow when it's getting close to full. You will go back up to your harvester, you will click on it, click on operate machinery, pop open the harvester or pop open the hopper and pull out whatever the resource is. And then you can also go over and add more power, and in this case you can't add power, just maintenance. But in extra in this case, I'm not going to bother because, ooh, actually, okay, so normally at this stage, I would pick up the harvester. I would pack it up and take it back to my house, and I would put it in the bin, and I would not bother. I would not keep it out. I would put it away. I would put all this stuff back in my house and record it. In this particular case, there's actually a really high concentration of a different radioactive up right now. So one sec, I'm gonna go look this up. This is very exciting. I'm going to see what it is so I don't have to harvest it because I don't need to. And it's actually a really good radioactive. The reason it's a really good radioactive, if anybody's curious, is because it has really high PE. So it's not really going to be nearly as good as, say, this Mustafarian radioactive down here below for actually crafting with, but it's going to be absolutely excellent for using as power and other things because the power potency is weighted entirely on the PE. So instead of picking that up, since I don't have anything else to put down, I'm going to turn the harvester back on this new radioactive. And I'm going to do that for all of them. And I'm going to double check to make sure they have enough to last a little bit longer. And then I'm going to run around to all 6 of them and do just that. So between your houses and your factories and your harvesters, even with 5 characters, you have plenty of harvesters to kick around for a decent number of crafters. I mean, you obviously can't harvest everything in the game all at the same time. It's literally not possible. But most of the time, there's not going to be that much stuff up. I would say I harvested a lot more when I was new to the game because I was willing to take lesser quality stuff because I didn't have anything and I was just trying to get my foot in the door. And nowadays, I mean, if it's not capping or if it's not serving a very specific purpose in my collection, I should say collection, but you know what I mean. In my working group of resources, I kind of don't bother with it because I feel like it would just be taking up space, and I just end up selling it. And I don't really want to play that part of the game. I don't super like to harvest things just to sell them. It's just kind of a waste of time because it does take time. You know, sometimes it could take me a half an hour or more to find a really good spot to put down harvesters like this. Not just because I can't find a high density, but because there's a player city in the way, or somebody beat me to it, or there's a lair in the way, or there's a stupid hill in Dantooine or Dathomir blocking my spot. So that can be kind of a pain in the butt. This isn't 90, but even 80, and I don't have to pick it back up. Every time you pick up a harvester and then put it back down again, you end up spending money. So I kind of would rather not. If I can leave it down, I've actually made a little extra money off of that. It's not an extreme amount or anything. It's just really nice to have that option. So all of these are running for 30 days or more. I'm going to scoop all of this stuff together. I have kind of a lot of power from that last run. That was absolutely insane. I have 6.4 million of that high grade polymetric, and that actually was really high quality because it has really high quality OQ. So that will be really nice. And then I will go back to Aide. I will go back to harvesting, and instead of deleting this, normally I would at this stage have taken down all of those harvesters. I would click on, where is it? Deactivate harvester read. Instead of doing that, I'm going to click deactivate harvester stays put. Yes, it's going to kick it back here, and then I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to click Add to Harvester Panel. I'm going to take this one that isn't a deed form, so I know that's the one. I'm going to click times 6, so I remember I put 6 of them down. You don't actually have to do that. You could use the harvester cluster. You could do 6 of these. I'm lazy, so I'm not going to bother. I'm actually going to put the highest concentration I saw, which I think was 92, because I actually want that to be the trigger for how old this is going to be. I will not click Add to Inventory because this is not going in my inventory bin. It's actually going into my power bin, so I won't store that as a high quality resource. And then I will click OK, and I will go back to harvesting, and there it is. And you can see it's already ticking up. It's already calculating exactly. You know what? Yeah, I didn't even need to put down the buff because normally I'd have to go get a buff first, but since I didn't pick up the harvesters and put them back down, I don't need to go get the buff either. This is actually extremely convenient, and I think I've made it look much more easy than it actually is. Because sometimes I'll sit here and I just want it to be fast, and instead it takes me an hour to put things down. But this was extremely fortuitous. Thank you, video game, for making things easy on me. So that is all of the harvesting that I'm doing right now. So I actually have 2 characters who aren't harvesting anything. I don't need anything. I don't need any junk resources right now, and there's nothing else up that I want, so I'm just not going to stress that. There will always be a time later. I will delete this because it no longer exists, and I will add this to my monitor, and now I'm keeping an eye on how old that is so I know when that will roll. So before I close out this video, which I realize has been a little on the rambly and confusing side, and to be honest, that's because there's no really good place to start with a game this old, with this many layers of complexity. Like, I almost can't explain one system without explaining 3 others, and so I feel like if you actually wanted to learn something from this video, you'd have to watch it twice. Please don't watch it twice. But I'm saying that because this is one of those games where you can try to be really good at everything, but there aren't enough hours in the day for you to really pull it off. And I'm sure there's somebody out there who's going to say, well, actually, and that's fine. Okay, you're the one guy who can pull it off. The vast majority of people are not going to be able to do this. Being really good at just one craft takes a tremendous amount of time. It takes so much resource collection and collation and just learning what's good and learning the tricks of how to experiment. Learning, you've got like a business sector just tacked on top of it. It's not just about crafting, it's about actually moving the product. It's about, actually organizing your factories and keeping them moving in a organized way so that there are no backlogs and bottlenecks. There's a lot going on, and some of that stuff transfers to other crafts, and some of it really doesn't. Like somebody, I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, that Bruno, one of our longtime commenters on MFP, he was like, I have a really great idea. You should be an armor smith, and because armor smiths, have a really great opportunity right now where they could totally go out and make like mid and low level armor because there are all these newbies coming to the game, and he's not wrong. There are all these newbies coming to the game, and they need this stuff, and nobody's making it for them. You could do that. I was like, that is a great idea for an armor smith. Because I'm not an armor smith, and it's not that I have no interest in it. I will probably do this at some point. I did in the old game when I kind of got tired of doing the chef business for years and years and years, and I had also stockpiled many years of resources from 2 different servers and was able to just kind of just pop over into the armor crafting business without a whole lot of friction. It's not as easy to do that because I've only been on this server. I haven't even been there 2 years yet, so almost 2 years. So I don't actually have the stuff to just go and become an armor smith and be able to do it in any depth. I could go over there and I could make boots. I could make, shirts, Ubi's armor shirts. I could probably make like outfit type armor, just pretty armor, and I'm sure I could make some base level, non-Primus level suits. No question. Would I be able to do it at scale? Probably not, and it would require a ton more factories that would then be competing with my core business. That's the thing, is when you're trying to juggle how many lots you have as well as how much time you have to actually do it, it just ends up being one of those things where, no, you really can't do them all to the same degree of competence, which is why I don't even try to, for example, be a tailor. Just running factory components for tailoring and selling them takes me time. Actually trying to run a secondary business where I was making hundreds of outfits or hundreds of pieces of clothing individually, one by one, with specialty colors and stuff, every single week, that would take hours upon hours upon hours that I don't want to spend doing that. And there are whole professions I don't know really anything about. I have never gotten into cybernetics, even though I have an engineer. I have not ever really gotten hardcore into shipwright. That is just not my expertise. I've never done it. Weaponsmithing, I haven't done that in what years? I haven't done that in like 8 years. More than that. Oh my gosh. We're old. I haven't done that in a really, really long time. I did a little tiny bit of dabbling in that way back in the old servers. I have not done it here. I probably won't. It's just one of those things. You kind of have to pick your niche and specialize, and then you can kind of branch out into little directions, but I wouldn't expect to do everything, and that's okay. And one of the things that I really love about it is that because each individual craft takes up so much time and expertise, it means you really do have to specialize, and it means everybody else also feels free to specialize. So everybody around you is kind of doing the same thing. Yes, there will always be those people who are speccing into a new crafting class, every week and changing their mind and trying something different and like edging in on your market. They don't stay, they don't last, and most of them can't even compete. So I don't worry about those guys. But the truth is, Bruno had a really good idea. So if you're coming to this game new and you've never done this before, you don't necessarily have to do everything Bree just said. You don't have to have the crazy spreadsheets. You don't necessarily have to have SWG Aide. I wouldn't play without it, but you definitely could. Obviously, people at one point did play without it. You don't have to have a huge conglomerate of factories. You don't have to do any of the things that I just said. When we started out in 2003, when this game launched, nobody had those things. Like somebody had to build all of those things from scratch from the very beginning. I was literally making spice on my smuggler one item at a time. I didn't even have a factory, let alone factory crates. I was literally selling spice out of my bag one by one. My guildie was literally crafting shirts and jackets because he wanted to be, a tailor fighter. And so he was making outfits one piece at a time and selling them and handing them out. Everybody started somewhere, and there's a lot of stuff you can do in the game without all of the hoopla I just described. For example, the tailoring system that I have set up. It didn't really cost very much money to get into that. It doesn't really require any high quality resources whatsoever. You could literally take a character out in a week or two of overnight sampling and get enough resources to start that kind of a business in this game. It would be small and humble, and it's totally 100% doable. The droid system that I have set up, same thing. I've logged in my droid engineer here just to kind of show off her droids. I should be clicking on them while I talk. But honestly, the vast majority of things she makes, with the exception of one resource, it's really low end. It's not particularly high quality at all. Anybody could really do this if you really wanted to do it without a huge investment of time and money. So ultimately, I want to make sure that in doing this video, I am not scaring or chasing off the noobs, the newbies. You can absolutely play Star Wars Galaxies, this server, every server, without being a crafter at all. Let alone this kind of crafter. There are absolutely crafting niches you can do without huge chunks of time or a willingness to spend years and years collecting resources to cap out a whole profession. You just don't need to do that. I just wanted to use this video and this platform just to show what a day in the life, what a day in my life of playing this game is actually like. Only I sort of did it out of order, and I didn't really show off what like farming meat with 3 dudes and 3 droids is like. That's a whole nother thing for a whole nother video. We'll save that for some other time when you guys are interested in that. So suffice it to say, I don't do everything I just showed you every single day, and I certainly don't do it all in that order. I just do like a combination of the more pressing ones every couple of days when I actually play a couple times a week. And you know what, even if they seem wacky or boring and I'm making fun of myself while I'm doing it, the truth is that running a video game shop like this, that has repeat customers, I see the same names, the same faces coming through, on a regular basis, and people send me lovely mail about how pretty my house is. I like this. This is nice. I like being this tiny little haven in an online sandbox where I'm constantly bumping into all of the people who are actually benefiting from what I'm doing. And I think this is why I can't stay away from this game, even though SOE killed it a million years ago and I'm, playing in Legends now. I just enjoy this. There are too many true MMOs in this world where you can log in and be a full-time chef alongside other people who are, full-time whatever's, full-time fighters and pilots and PvPers and entertainers, full-time role players who literally don't do anything but type the whole time they log in. All of these people are in this game and I absolutely love it. So, I think that's going to do it for me. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you are super weird and you are my people. If you have any questions, drop them in our comments on the site rather than in this YouTube, at the end of this YouTube. So to be sure it gets to me. In fact, drop us a tip because that's the best way to get to right to my inbox, especially once this video is a couple months old. I am totally happy to answer any questions, at least about the professions I know about, or to upload more clips or anything like that for specific things where people want an even more detailed walkthrough rather than this long but kind of overview-ish overview. Bree from Massively OP here, signing off from my video game hot tub. Later, everyone.